Welcome to this Sunday's Poets in Pajamas. I'm Alex DiFrancesco. I want to say thank you right from the start to Sundress Academy for the Arts, which is a wonderful organization in Nashville and all over the internet and nationwide. I guess they do things, but mostly in Nashville, who does wonderful things that build community and bring things like this to the internet, for example. So again, my name is Alex DiFrancesco. I am here to read you some things tonight. I had 2 books published in 2019. This is one, it's called Psychopomps, and it's a memoir about my life as a trans person and the attempt, as the back cover says, to search for the elusive link to ancient beliefs about the special spiritual role of the trans individual in society. This is my other book that was published last year. It's called All City, and it's through 7 Stories Press, and it's about a near future New York City that's pretty battered by climate change and economic inequality. And we follow a few characters through the attempts to rebuild community and functional sort of society in the wreckage of the city. And again, it's near future, so it's kind of sci-fi-ish, soft sci-fi, but cli-fi, some would say. So my work often deals with transgender issues, as I'm transgender. It deals with leftist political issues a lot. And then sometimes it deals with pop culture. Tonight, I'm going to be reading 2 pieces that are mostly pop culture influenced. One is a short story called The Wind, which is based off of a Leonard Cohen song called The Partisan, which is in turn based off an old French partisan song from World War II. And the story follows several characters from marginalized identities as they walk through the French countryside after derailing a train full of Nazis. And they are all carrying monsters with them. So I write speculative work a lot too. And then the other thing I'll be reading from tonight is this book of poetry. This is called Bird is the Word, the Iggy and Biggie Cycle. Also pop culture influenced. If you know who Iggy Pop is, this short book of poetry is about Iggy Pop singing to his cockatoo, Biggie Pop. I see hearts on the screen. This is wonderful. I wasn't expecting that. So anyway, Iggy Pop singing to his cockatoo, Biggie Pop, and the song he's singing is Surfin' Bird by the Trashmen, which you may know better as Bird, 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 Bird is the Word. So I wrote a series of poems that are the origins of both Iggy and Biggie. And then it goes into a few poems about Iggy and Biggie as characters in literature or other stories that deal with the beastly and the beautiful, as in Beauty and the Beast is one of them. And then it culminates in a series of love poems. So first, I'm going to read you the short story, which is of a little more serious nature. And I also am supposed to talk about my influences. That was one of the things that was suggested. And that's why we're in my office where all my influences are on the wall behind me. Most of my biggest influences, all of whom are musicians and pop culture people. And Yoko Ono is also a visual artist, as you probably know, and her visual art is the best. Anyway, so pop culture tonight and pop culture behind me. And I'm going to start with this piece called The Wind. Listen, there at the end, we took up a collection of all we had left. Gone were the makeshift explosives that had derailed the train, the bullets that had cut down the soldiers who tried to escape. Gone was our hope we would make it the 6 months lifespan our dearest had. What we had left amounted to some lint, a hard biscuit that we fought for the crumbs of, a penny someone had pulled off a dead eye, and our monsters. We had carried them with us all this way, out to the frontier line where we won the battle, but knew our time was short, where the survivors spilled over in numbers so much greater than ours, and we fell back and hid like ghosts over the graves. First we carried them in our nightmares, then we carried them in our fear, and then we carried them in our anger. Finally, we carried them as the only link to who we were. They trailed behind us, too far to be seen. We heard the click of their hooves or teeth, looked back for them, saw nothing. But they trailed us always, ragged balloons on 2 long strings clutched in dirty hands. There at the end, they weren't all that followed us. The soldiers that had pursued us since the blast, the guns, hoary and hungry death. The soldiers' distance from us on the map shrunk, as our stomachs shrunk, as whatever force makes life did as well. We felt that force evaporating all around us, rising with the morning mist in the fields, drawing up and away from the skeletons that jutted against our taut flesh. We lit a fire in an old barn, destroyed and abandoned on a field. We'd found and killed a chicken, broken its neck, and pulled its feathers from its dimpled skin. We thanked it for its life, which we would consume and take as our own. Death's nearness had made us spiritual. We felt monstrous as we brought it to its painful, clumsy end. We sealed that end with our myriad prayers. The meat would barely be enough for any strength or energy for any of us, and it seemed so cruel to bring death for so little. But that dwindling force inside us screamed and railed against dissipating, against the urge to lie on the cold ground and never stand back up, to freeze into the landscape. After we cooked and divided the chicken, after we ate it and the fat of its body still clung to our hands and the whiskers on our cheeks and chins, we warmed ourselves by the fire. Out in the open, we'd had no flames, had not wanted to give ourselves up by their dancing. Here inside the barn, the fire was close, warm, a sun instead of a surrender. We hunched around it, our old coats smelling of sweat, our thin hands spread at the fingers like starfish above the flames. We slept that night, really slept, tossing under the weight of blankets and dreams, burrowing into the hay that still littered the corners and smelled of musky animal hide. But we had been unvigilant in our sleep. When we woke, death had taken the Romani. His skin was still warm from the fire we had never put out, but stiff and waxen. He had put his name in our mouths, though none of us were ever to know the other's real names. We had called him worse, the gypsy, the gyp, and he'd corrected us each time until he died the Romani to us. We wanted to mourn him, but knew he'd have a better death than all of us, even better than the bird we'd eaten for dinner, who had thrashed and cried. He had exhaled and escaped on a breath into the mire of dreams, never coming out. All we felt was jealousy. We were across the field the barn stood on when the Romani's monster came walking towards us. It wore his body like a poorly tailored suit. Its teeth were sharp and its skin still the stiff wax of death. We hadn't buried him in his custom for protection. We hadn't removed his head, bound his hands. We hadn't buried him at all. And the monster he had carried had found him, was now carrying him. His eyes were dead and milky, swimming under the call of death's second sight. We slowed our pace until he walked with us, his cold bones cracking like gunfire. We kept to the trees after the Romani's monster joined us. Our ammunition long spent, we carried our guns uselessly. The Romani's monster carried nothing in its hands. Its nails were long yellow daggers, having grown in death and the short walk to us. Others might have feared, but we carried the penny from a dead eye, the bones of our dinner, our own monsters. We carried the weight of our own skin growing waxen in the moonrise, breaking and tearing too deep to bleed. The Romani's monster walked counterclockwise around us as we laid our heads down, dust swirling at its shuffling feet in storm clouds. We coughed deep in our dry lungs and begged it to stop, which it did in time. It laid down flat in the earth. The Jew's heart appeared to give out as we shuffled along the dirt road. We didn't know where we were headed any longer except away. Our maps had become strange sigils drawn over fantasy mountains. As we tried to walk quietly, the Jew gave out a cry, clutched his chest, and fell. As the warmth spilled from his body, we wrote the names of our gods on paper and slid them under his stone tongue. It had rained the night before, and we streaked his body with mud until he was Adam, the first of his monster's kind. Mute, unseeing, radioed to commands from who knew where, he rose to follow us. There were 2 humans left to walk with the 2 monsters the dead had carried. We put down our guns. We knocked on a door, and the old woman who answered moved her eyes between us, speaking rapidly in a language none of us spoke. She finally took us, men and monsters, to a shed behind her house. Scolding, it seemed, she brought us dried meats, wine, cheese, bread. We wept, and she and the monsters watched us eat as if we never would again. No politeness or prayer, wolves in our hunger. We slept amongst the tools someone had once worked her field with. The monsters walked around the shed. In the morning, when we rose to say goodbye, she was dead. The monsters couldn't have stopped the single bullet as it went into her head. The pursuit was almost over. The madman's monster came in the night. He let us call him that because his monsters had always called him worse, and he had become immune. He was still breathing when they came closer. They huddled beneath the trees, all wet wings, dripping hair, open mouths. They chanted, though I could not hear them. Only he heard them, as he always had. I don't know if they chanted his suicide, but his knife flashed silver at his wrists, and his blood was an oil slick in the dirt. The dogs were close, the men were close. I could not bury him. I did not have the strength. So we walked. And they touched me, one after another, the hand of clay, the long yellow nails with earth beneath them, the claws that rent the skin of my arm. I wondered who would carry me as the howling came closer and the torch fire winked with the night stars. My monsters had been amorphous, my history is burned. I wondered if I could claim protection from a fine ghost in a black riding coat, a moon boy sold to a fate he never chose. I thought of the woman who had brought us meat and cheese and bread. I thought of the wine dribbling from our lips like blood as we wept, and also of her face destroyed by a bullet, the hole of blackness, the well of blood, and I wondered if her spirits could carry me. My vision tunneled as I walked in the dust clouds. There was only the monsters and I, the companions I had found one at a time, with whom I had tried to stop the advance. Runaways, escapees, the brutally damned, the unchosen, the cast out. My vision hurled itself to the margins, and I wept, and I washed away the world, and when I saw again, I saw myself in a shawl, holding a cane. I was an old woman, practicing my old woman magic on the empty fields, calling the wolves and the bears to circle. And the monsters and the bears and the wolves and those mad with frenzy. We turned. We saw the dogs cower and the torches fall and the wind blow through the graves. All right, so that was the first piece I'm going to read tonight. And then now I'm just going to read a short series of poems, which again is from Bird is the Word, the Iggy and Biggie cycle. This is a major left turn. That last piece was pretty serious, I'd say. And this is a collection about joy and absurdity. And I never realized until I started writing it how much genuine love has to underpin absurdity. So again, this is about Iggy Pop singing Surfin' Bird to his cockatoo Biggie Pop. And there's 10 poems, which I will read you all of them. They're short. All right. Bird is the Word 1, Iggy, Origins. In Coachville Gardens trailer park, houses hunker low. Why rent when you could own? Come see us. At Wealthy Tappan Junior High, he carries the stigma. Trailers make sense, stern father says. Tapping his foot on the floor, drums call back to the machines. The machines. Breaking into the factories for the joy of machines, the dull industrial cacophony repeats as he drums on the floor. When Iggy brings his first drum set to the trailer, what with Ichabod Crane father's height, what with round mother's width, what with tiny trailers' insufficiency, and his eyes light like in the factories, the industrial noise. Parents put drums in their bedroom and sleep elsewhere. In Coachville Gardens trailer park, houses hunker low. Love is unconditional. Bird is the word two. Biggie origins. Biggie's the cockatoo, if you have forgotten. Yes. So this is split into three sections. 1. Perhaps somewhere in the eastern Indonesian islands in Australia, a white bird with a rapid heartbeat was caught in a net. And perhaps that bird had needs hard to meet, though it was aviculture's popular choice. And perhaps every tuber and daylily that went into its hungry mouth was love. Love. 2. Cockatoos have superfamilies, but not the kind that would give up their bedroom for your drum set. They are not of the true parrot family, and who knew parrots had such cruel hierarchies? Cockatoos are monogamous, just one love. 3. Or perhaps Biggie was born into captivity, a cage, and this is the best life his pet store perfection envisioned, a white bird, a scarlet crest, a gambler's watchman. Bird is the word 3, Iggy, origins. The incoming hail of magnificent warfare, the surge of fury a hex on him, indestructible Iggy, his glory drained, decidedly degraded, playing a decaying Detroit movie hall, biblical parallels, Lazarus before the rolled stone, psychodrama, lascivious enunciation, audience pelting eggs at the pointless circus. Iggy, a ritual sacrifice, music still boiled to purity. Managers steal his clothes to thwart midnight drug trawls. The future cabin boy mental hospital rehab hides in his eyes, his hoodlum riff. Bird is the word 4, Biggie origins. White the feathers, sulfur-crested, black the iris, male-coated, wash the skin, powder-dusted, adrenaline rush, erectile-crested, forge simulation, gatherer-coated, brief restraint by hands left dusted. Now this is the section of Iggy and Biggie as other characters. And this is, Bird is the word 5, Iggy and Biggie as Beauty and Beast. I really like Beauty and the Beast by the Trash Man. Do you want me to sing that to you, Biggie? Beast, 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 Beauty and the Beast. Beast, 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 Beauty and the Beast. Am I under heaven's protection? Don't you know, command what you wish. Oh, everybody knows you're queen and mistress. Many men are more monstrous than you. A bapa oo mau mau, bapa oo mau mau mau. And so hard-hearted girls rub onion in their eyes to bring tears and become stone with consciousness beneath. Bird is the word 6, Iggy and Biggie as the great white bear and the youngest daughter. In the castle that lays east of the sun and west of the moon, rooms gleaming with silver and gold, a white bear, a silver bell, a mirror reflecting blackbird eyes, silken pillows and curtains, all for the love of a great white bear. The great white bear casts off his pelt at night, the youngest daughter with her scarlet crest, sunk so low to arrive at the west wind's house. Bird is the word 7, Iggy and Biggie as Sarah and Lonesome Sally. Jesus was a gambler, Jesus was a beast, Jesus was a jockey, his whiskey made of wheat, Jesus makes a living, Jesus drives a van, Jesus makes a bird call, Jesus makes a man. A bird alone in a cage can survive 5 years, under a blanket, the temperature at 60 degrees, its tropical body cold. It will tremble in terror but live. Lonesome Sally waits for Sarah's heated car to whisk her to a new cage, uncovered in blankets and layers of shit. How could someone do this? She's as big as my hand. Birds like when you sing to them. A bapa oo mau mau, bapa oo mau mau mau. Lonesome Sally trembles, eyes wide against her mirror and bell. And Jesus found a penny. Jesus got religion. Jesus found a passage. Listen, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Bird is the word 8, old love poem with an eye towards the future. An element of danger, a Roman arena, blood spurting a continuous stream each time he raised his arm. Love once inflicted like wounds gaffer's tape couldn't contain. Iggy sang on, body a ballet dancer's tool, waiting, while perhaps somewhere in the eastern Indonesian islands in Australia, Biggie's perfection sang too. Bird is the word 9, transitional love poem. Consider you could be loved like this. Consider a wild, wheeling sobriety. Consider Detroit as a child, a failed dream, and the rage of a live one smoothed out into this. Consider just how gentle one must be to love something so small. Consider costumes, pirates, galleons, ghosts. Consider the wing spread of that thing from your dreams. And the final poem, which is Bird is the word 10, ekphrastic love poem. This is about the actual video of Iggy and Biggie. Slick, shirtless, body, a ripple, a wrinkle of flesh, reptilian talons so soft on shoulder, bodies synced in a dip of the head of the shoulders, bodies breaking up, moving in an intimacy of familial repetition, bodies and birds, tarantella tango, cha-cha-cha, bloody bodily harm, bopping, breaking, tender, gentle, dances invented, soft steps fill a need. I will sing to you, dear one, and the word will be wings. Furculum to raising supercoracoideus, your joy, dear one, remix to retrix, royal with your rumba, and I will sing, dear one. I will sing. Thanks. That's my reading for tonight. So next up, if anybody has any questions, yeah, those can definitely happen now. I guess to talk a little more about these pieces, the Iggy Pop poems, again, just came from this video of Iggy Pop, and it's printed up by Bone and Ink Press, which is a tiny press that does a lot of pop culture work. So I was really excited to work with them about it. And the coolest thing, one of the coolest things about writing poetry, which I don't really write a lot of, was that Hanif Abdurraqib blurbed it saying that it was the kind of collection that makes him leap with joy, not only as a fan of unique and untold music history, but also as a fan of exciting narrative and language. And that made my day. Okay, so I'm waiting to see if any questions come in. Yeah, and to talk a little more about the other piece, yeah, it's part of a collection that is a radical reclamation of monsters by the marginalized. It's a collection of short stories, and that's the opening story to it, which I think really sets the tone to it. But, you know, there's like trans vampires and a will-o'-the-wisp that appears after the disappearance of a Black housekeeper in the Jim Crow South. And there's basically the premise of that collection is that in like Gothic literature, the outsiders were the monsters, right? So in this collection, it's an attempt for the people on the outside to reclaim those monsters and make them their own, and, you know, sometimes be monstrous themselves. And yeah, it's been really intense and really wonderful to write. I'm not seeing any questions come up. So I don't know if there are going to be any. I hope so. But if not, it's been really lovely reading with Sundress Publications for the Arts Poets in Pajamas tonight. Oh, okay. I have a question from Jacqueline Lee Muncie Scott, which is, are there any images you find yourself returning to over and over? That's a really good question. So something I had to stop doing was talking about the stars in my work, because I used to do that a lot when I was younger. So no more stars unless absolutely necessary. Stars in the sky. That is, you know, we can remain with stars like Iggy Pop for a while though. There is Images that I return to over and over. I don't know that there's any particular images. So what's actually an interesting thing is that I'm aphantasic, which means I don't see images in my mind. I just have kind of like words and like a narration, but I can't see images. So imagery in work is probably not, it's not that I can't create imagery in my work. It's that to return to it as a place that I'm working from isn't actually something my brain can do. So I don't know that I have images that I return to over and over, but there's certainly themes I return to over and over. A lot of, the themes of All City were gender and gentrification of cities and inequality in its various sort of permutations. And I return to those things a lot in my work. Yeah. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. So if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to close this reading out. Thank you all very much for watching, and I guess there will be a video of it soon. So I am looking forward to that, seeing myself awkwardly giggling and reading poetry. There's the awkward giggle. All right. Thanks so much, folks. Have a great night.